everyone, and welcome back to the DreamHack Open at Cluj-Napoca. It was absolutely an insane series. It was a tale of mouse and men. Mousesports losing, they were the mice. G2, the men. Incredible performance.
Can you spell that out anymore for us, please?
Yeah, just in case people didn't realise.
It's a book. Oh, it's a book. Yeah, oh, okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're like Lenny right now. So anyway, let's get into it, boys. It was literally such an amazing back and forth
It's literally
series.
A game of mice versus men.
Literally.
And humans.
And occasionally, some of them.
So, some star players there playing out. So let's start with Moraes.
Star mice?
Yeah.
Some star mice playing out of their minds there. So most notably, Nico from Mousesports, Makelele for G2 as well. Really exciting stuff there. Really back and forth action. We saw Pistols getting one and then Eco's coming in 3-3. Big clutches every single round. Went all the way down to the wire, 15-14. And the crescendo came in. Makelele wins the 1v2 to take it to overtime. And then G2 take it out. Really exciting stuff there to open it up.
Yeah, but I just want to say as well, just talking about those last few rounds, and indeed when it went to overtime, Makelele's clutching was just ridiculous. Absolutely insane.
I mean, if you're Mousesports right now and you go back from an event like this and you try and look at some demos to figure out what's been going wrong, sometimes I think you could be faced with a scenario where you're thinking, it's going to be a little bit tricky. Then we're going to look for details, small details that are going wrong. But if you have, 8 or 9 clutches or something like that, and Makelele just clutching all over the place, you've got to start asking yourself, it's like a general theme, if there's a pattern here. And I think, not to take anything away from G2, but sometimes, when there's that many of them, then Mousesports have got to be making some mistakes as well.
That's also where I get a bit worried, because we know Mousesports just changed to English instead of speaking German before, and then also one of the players they've lost to get this fantastic talent of Nico is they've lost a guy who was like a role player, but he had a long-term history with players, synergy, and so whenever people talk about synergy and teamwork and stuff, what I think of it as is synergy to me is like the unspoken chemistry you have. It's not like, oh, you do this after I do this. It's like just knowing where the other guy's going to be. And so when you're tending not to win so many of those clutch on situations, that suggests to me people are a bit off. Like they don't necessarily play off each other so well. Meanwhile, I guess Makelele wasn't really playing with anyone in that scenario. It was just him versus 2 people at all times.
Now, while I agree with you, Anders, that Makelele, while he was making these good clutches, obviously mistakes have to happen, right, if you're going to make these clutches. But I just want to show you some of these clips that we've got from Makelele here. It's just incredible. Like right now, I think when there's multiple people on him, he just seems to be at his best.
This is the thing, when Mousesports are in this situation, it started off like a 3-on-1. It seemed like they played it so slowly. Instead of focusing on the objective, playing together, I'm not really sure how he's got this much positional control. They should be just getting out, focusing on getting the bomb down here. It seems like he's got way too much space. There's a pincer coming in from short. He somehow finds a kill there and then onto the bomb site, and it's a disgusting clutch to watch. And actually, I think Mousesports are going to watch that back in a bit of horror. Here's the pistol round on the second half here. It's not the most fabulous clutch in the world, but in the context of the game, it's absolutely huge. He's got a nice bomb down, and 2-on-1. The CT's really struggling. He finds that one kill, and you know he's won at that point. Yeah. Massive round to win, and just really intelligent play from him. Didn't have to go crazy with the aim, but just really
but
nice
that's what I mean. It shows he's got ice in his veins. He didn't go for that re-peak where we see people do that all the time.
And here we go. This is the last 1-on-1. Well, it started off as a 2-on-1 to win the round. I think we missed the first shot there, but just in terms of Mousesports looking like this.
And
is
that was Nico versus Simbas. You thought, great, it's a battle of the 2 guys who were going off.
This is just how many clutches we had here. Mousesports actually approached the rounds really well. They were getting themselves into these 2-on-1 situations. They need to be capitalizing on those. That may be the communication issue we talked about. Maybe there's a little bit of input lag to where they're calling out positions and stuff like that. So when you lose that many clutches in a row, you've got to think, like, okay, something's probably going wrong here.
Yeah, I agree. I've got to say as well, just probably bring the statistics up, it's kind of tangentially linked to the match. But, you think about how he had this spell in NIP and was sort of deemed surplus to requirements. They must be in the audience watching this right now thinking, like, what we could have had when you're looking at some of their players and how they're statistically under-delivering. Makelele dragged them through that map at the end. I mean, there's just no doubt about it.
Interesting enough, though, the player we called out for not performing this tournament, Jacob, he's actually going huge as well. 33 frags himself. Obviously, we've talked about Makelele this whole time, but Jacob, one of the players we said actually hasn't impressed us so far. That's a huge performance from him as well. 33 frags. That's like the only person that's beating him is Makelele and Nico. 35. He actually topped the score.
And I mean, what's so disappointing about this on the mouse side of things is brilliant play by G2. They got everything they wanted pretty much. They're winning all the situations, even when they're not in good positions and Mouse is doing what they need to. The mouse engine was working. It was exactly the way you'd want the scoreboard to be, the right stars at the right times. Gobby's the only one lagging a bit behind. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's why they've got all this firepower, so it doesn't matter. You put yourself time and time again in position to win, and he's unable to close the job. Even if there's two people, they can't find the crossfire, they can't bait the guy in. Makelele just made good decisions, but then it was combined with like just poor understanding of how to play those situations out.
You know, when you think, you know, about G2 and the talent they've got there in terms of fragging, you know, you got Jacob in there, Dennis in there, obviously Rain in there, you know, and then Makelele's come into this game. I'm just going to add myself to that threesome. It's just incredible. So we've got another clip, Henry, if you just want to talk us through this one and the relevance.
So this is the B execute. This is Mousesports onto a force buy here. So they're going into the B bomb site. They're up against the ropes. They haven't got guns to work with. Smoke's come down. This is really viable on a map like Mirage. You actually have access to bomb sites before any information can be gathered. They get the first kill. Nex is the only man of the weapon here. That entry kill comes in. I think it's Dennis that gets his first couple of frags towards short of the Tech 9. And it's just such a fabulous round to win. That's the first one. And this is Nico left in his 2-on-1 clutch. He has a Tech 9 against 2 rifle players. Bomb down, out of position, and somehow pulls it off. That's,
that's miraculous, that last shot there.
And this is the Deagle, the bonanza I spoke about before. That was such a devastating round. That's the kind of round to put you on full tilt here. The fact that G2 can come back into this game after receiving that, it's absolutely incredible.
It's 1, 2, 3 in a bed.
This is the 3-man spray down from Nico. Again, another stellar round from him. The fact, look at this positional control they've got on the map. So you've got one player backing him up, covering him from apartments. He knows he can rely on his teammate there. And it's the 3-man spray down there.
What's so funny about that?
I didn't laugh.
Just, but here's the thing. So when you perform that well and you end up on the losing side of a map, you know, I don't know enough about the dynamic within Mousesports, but I usually think if you're the player that's played well, there is going to be a little bit of a tilt factor set in. We saw this with Kenny S when he was like going God mode for Titan, you know, and he was like 50 frags. We're still losing the game, are we? Okay, great. You know, what have I got to do? And you know, we saw how disappointed Izzy looked, and it's like, you know, why didn't you all help me? You know, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be on his mind, frankly. You're like going in, because it's series, obviously you've got another map to play.
And the other problem is, I always think this as well, there's so many times you see a series go like that, like, oh, we were so close to winning map 1, and then map 2 we did win, but really close, and then map 3 we got, why do we get blown out in map 3? It's because the amount of effort it's taken you just to get to the third map. It's like, you wasted so much of your effort on the first one, you've put everything into it, you've been going so hard, and to get on to the third one there, I mean, to survive through 2, you're just not. It's going to be so hard at that third one.
That's probably a nice segue to come on to Inferno now.
Yeah,
I guess,
I agree. We'll bring the statistics up from that. And we talked about Inferno. It was a problem map for Mousesports. We wondered whether or not they were going to be able to address these problems overnight, whether or not they were going to be able to sort of disseminate some tactics. Obviously, judging by the looks of things with GodB's scoreline, he did spend the previous night working on tactics a lot because it got him the win.
Before we came into this game, we speculated what the problems were on the first stage with the group match on Inferno. Chris J finally actually getting the AWP out, and he was really influential. He may not have the most frags there, but he was actually finding that form, that dynamic, aggressive AWP, pushing into apartments, finding first kills, helping out in the clutch situations as well. So it's good to see him coming to life as well. Nico, another huge performance as well. 35 frags in the first map, 24 on this one, and their CT side was actually really solid. They came back and they just managed to claw their way back into this one. The same with their T-half as well.
When you look at the first 2 maps, yes, Mouse could have won, but man alive, Nico really did have an AZS performance. He did everything he could on the first 2, where he should have been leaving here. Okay, no need for a third map, we won already, guys. But it's because G2 always managed to stay there in terms of the fragging. They never let them get a pace to them in that sense, and so you add in clutches, and it was always going to be possible also for G2 to win all these maps.
And there was a moment.
Could have also been a 2-0 member for G2, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, me and Anders were watching this game, and we were like, okay, we're definitely going to that third map now. And then all of a sudden, G2 were coming back into it.
15-9,
back into it.
They won a full eco. It was like P250s.
Yeah, exactly.
And they came to 15-10, and then I think it was 16-13 it finished around, but definitely a scary moment there.
Yeah, and then me and Anders were like, it's actually going to happen again. We've got another overtime coming, so.
I mean, you've got to have a lot of stamina if you're going to go into a third. Like, if you finish off 2 and you're still there for the third, I mean, that's the top players can do that. Yeah.
So we move on. Well, I mean, we won't dwell too much on Inferno. Have you got any clips for Inferno, Henry?
No, actually.
Okay, good.
Lazy.
So we won't dwell too much on it. We'll move into.
He falls asleep after 2.
We'll move into the third part of this epic encounter. So let's start talking about Cash. We'll get those statistics up on screen for a moment. But this was a game where it was like, I said I didn't know what Mousesports could do on this map in particular. G2, notoriously good on this map. They enjoy playing it. This is where, for me, this is why when we were calling predictions, I was just like, look, Mousesports going to struggle here. This is the difficult part.
Well, the thing for me, once G2 got onto that CT side, it was reminiscent of that DreamHack Valencia result against Virtus Pro, the 16-0 there. It looked like for a second that was actually coming to fruition. situation again.
I mean, one of the things we introduced G2 with was saying that they have pretty much 5 players who can all at any one time step it up. But if you look at who's top fragging throughout these 3 maps, it actually has been a pretty good rotation of players. Fox was on the last one. Dennis is up there every once in a while. Jacob obviously having a really good game overall. But, you know, and Rain there at the end. So, like, it turned out to be true across the 3 maps as well, that whenever someone would cool off, someone else would just step it up.
And in general, actually, across the 3 maps, he never was like the top fragging guy, the guy who'd have the highlight rounds, but Fox stayed very high level of fragging, actually. He really kept them apace.
Thinking about it, he's actually, the roles is really interesting within G2. So obviously on the T side, you have Makalele going for the more flashy style AWPing, but on the maps like Inferno and Cash, Fox is actually taking over the CT AWPing roles, and he's actually being very effective on them. In Cash, he was going for the aggressive picks towards B, getting the first pick, rotating the next round, and he did the same on Inferno as well. So it's actually quite nice to see him be able to pick that weapon back up and them giving him the freedom to play with his like legendary weapon. That's what he was known for within the Portuguese scene.
Yeah. Well, look, it's got to be said as well, nobody on G2 has played bad this tournament. So obviously we get a bit of a stick from Fox fans because we've been critical about him in the past. He's showing up at this tournament, and I think G2 right now, incredibly, they've kind of gone under the radar as dark horses for even us as the pundits. You know, we've talked about Team Liquid even ahead of them. Now I think we can see they're a real threat to be reckoned with, and they're getting better. Anyway, let's get the MVP overall of the whole series. It has been determined to be Jacob. I think that's relatively fair. I mean, Makalele might have had the more highlight rounds, the more impactful rounds, the clutch rounds. In terms of consistency, I'd say Jacob delivered. Anders, he's your boy. Any words about his performance?
Just very impressed. I mean, with the kind of pressure that was on them here, sort of do or die time, I'm impressed that he managed to step it up very consistently. It's been one of his big fall downs and letdowns earlier, that when the pressure is really on, we've all seen the players that can step it up in online games and do really well. And I think that used to be Jacob's role as well. But I'm excited that he managed to play consistently. In terms of experience, it's obviously huge for him. I think his value as a player has increased throughout just one best-of-3 game, essentially.
And the funny thing is, when we used to see that some of these Norwegian players, Rain, it's a back in London conspiracy, aside from the one Gfinity G3, which was like August of 2014, aside from that, they never lived up to that potential. They always had it online, they always had interesting tactics, some good skills there, but they never transitioned into these deep runs. Well, now we're seeing a couple of them. They're getting into major round of 8, so we're seeing if they'd had the right players around them, maybe they would have been able to develop like this before.
Right, and the Norwegian scene was played horribly by completely inconsistent roster lineups, and it's almost like Jacob and Rain are like the escapees from that scene, decided, you know, the Norwegian scene is never going to function in that way, or at least not with us, so we'll go somewhere else.
Henry, any final thoughts before we go to commercial break?
It's really gutting to see Mousesports not make that legendary status again. They're always on the cusp of it, and they work so hard. I think Gobby's one of the hardest working in-game leaders in terms of homework. I speak to all his players, and they seem to think he's the absolute god when it comes to the theory of the game. And it's really sad to see them go out like this. But congratulations to G2. It's great to see that new addition. JChem coming into them and working out. So good luck to them in the future.
No doubt the best.
And
team
I mean,
on
another team where you have to look and say, okay, let's contrast it against a very famous team. Cloud9 had these multiple majors where they haven't made the playoffs. Now G2, formerly Kingwin, is going into their second round of 8. So we're seeing they're establishing themselves. Okay, yeah, they haven't won a big tournament elsewhere, but at the biggest tournaments, they are showing up, and they are showing us gradually better improvements. And who would have thought it when they lose Scream here? Because you think of him as like a central piece, one of the best players. You think if you lose Scream and you're getting in a guy who's inexperienced, you can't possibly repeat the same performance, and yet they have.
Yep, they bounce back. Thanks a lot for your thoughts, gentlemen. Always a pleasure to talk to you. No doubt we'll see you all a little bit later in the day. And we want to remind you at home, before we go to our break, that you can keep up to date with all of the scores and indeed articles and coverage features with our coverage partner, theScore Esports. That's at theScoreEsports.com. Go there and download the app. And when we get back, this is it. This is the beast game, the one we've been looking forward to. Will the French sink like the Titanic, or will the streak be nipped in the bud? We're going to find out after the break. Please join us.